That three-word line, delivered with just this icy, almost disdainful style, Bond, James Bond, it's arguably the most famous self-introduction in all of cinema history.
It really is. I mean, the American Film Institute ranked that character as the third greatest hero ever to be on the silver screen. It's iconic.
But today we are diving deep into the man who embodied that line and then, kind of paradoxically, spent the next 40 years trying to escape it. Sir Thomas Sean Connery.
And we have a really deep and comprehensive stack of sources for this one.
Yeah.
They trace Connery's life right from his, working class beginnings as a milkman in Edinburgh.
A milkman. It's incredible.
All the way through to becoming a global cinematic knight. So our mission today is really to excavate those crucial, often unexpected nuggets of knowledge, the grit, the politics, the really surprising non-Bond career moves.
Yeah.
All the things that reveal the complexity and just the relentless determination of a man who is constantly seeking to redefine himself, really is against his own fame.
And you mentioned his early life informed his character, and that just feels like such a crucial thread running through all of the source material. He wasn't simply a film star. It was a study in strategic personal reinvention.
It was.
Always fighting against this suave, polished persona that he sort of accidentally created.
What's truly fascinating when you dig into it is how much that tough, grounded upbringing in Scotland informed the raw charisma and, well, the genuine hard man edge he later projected on screen.
Right.
We're going to look at the critical, really pragmatic decisions he made. Things like, quitting professional bodybuilding because he wouldn't sacrifice athleticism for just pure bulk.
An amazing decision when you think about it.
And then the ultimate sacrifice he made later in life, turning down just astronomical paydays for roles he didn't intellectually connect with. Those decisions, at the end of the day, defined his long-term success. They forced the world to recognize him as a great actor, not just a spy.
Okay, let's unpack this biography because the contrast between his roots and his global image is, it's just astonishing.
It really is. I mean, when we picture James Bond, we conjure up these images of bespoke suits, Aston Martins, high-stakes poker, or Monte Carlo.
Of course.
But when we talk about Thomas Sean Connery, we begin so far from that glamour. We start at the Royal Maternity Hospital in Edinburgh, where he was born on August 25, 1930.
And the sources really paint such a vivid picture of his foundation. He was brought up at number 176 Fountain Bridge, which was a block of tenements that has since been demolished. It was an environment of, financial struggle, but really strong family ties.
Absolutely. His mother, Euphemia Effie McLean, she worked as a cleaning woman, and his father, Joseph Connery, was balancing jobs as a factory worker and a lorry driver. This was a household sustained entirely by hard physical labor.
No silver spoons here.
Not at all. And we also find a surprisingly mixed cultural heritage, which is, I think, essential context for understanding his later very staunch Scottish nationalism.
How so?
Well, he was half Irish. His paternal great-grandparents emigrated from Wexford.
Yeah.
And intriguingly, one of those great-grandparents was identified as an Irish traveler.
Wow. I did not know that. And on his mother's side, the Scottish roots run incredibly deep, right? They connect him directly to the Highlands and Islands.
They do. His maternal great-grandparents were native Scottish Gaelic speakers from two very distinct regions, Fife and Uig on Skye. So you've got this real mix of Celtic identity brewing.
And there was also a religious split in the family, which was pretty common in Scotland at the time.
His father was Catholic, his mother was Protestant, and he started life known simply as Tommy.
Tommy.
Yeah. The adoption of his middle name, Sean, came later. The story is that it was because of a close Irish childhood friend he'd had named Samus.
Okay.
And when they were together, people started calling him Sean to highlight the assonance between the two names, and the new moniker just gets stuck.
So the shift from Tommy to Sean and then later to that nickname Big Tam, it really shows the sheer physical transformation he went through. The sources say he was reportedly quite small as a boy.
Yeah, but around age 12, he just hit this massive growth spurt. He reached his imposing adult height of 6 feet 2 inches by the time he was 18.
Big Tam.
Big Tam. It was a name that perfectly reflected this sudden stature and the physical presence he would carry his entire life.
And he immediately looked for ways to leverage that physique, didn't he? Which led him straight into bodybuilding.
Straight into it. He started serious training around 1951, really seeking the disciplined structure that athletics provided him. And this all culminated in his participation in the 1953 Mr. Universe competition.
Right, the Mr. Universe competition. Now, the sources vary a bit on this, don't they? He either placed third in the junior class or didn't place at all in the tall man classification.
Exactly. The result isn't really the point. The experience itself was pivotal, but not for the reason you might expect. It wasn't about winning.
And you noted this moment foreshadowed the strategic pragmatism he would employ throughout his career. He basically saw a dead end and just walked away, despite having the talent. Why was that?
The sources reveal a very, very calculated decision.
Yeah.
Connery realized he was at a competitive disadvantage against the American bodybuilders.
Okay.
They beat him purely on sheer muscle size, which he just wasn't naturally inclined toward or maybe wasn't willing to achieve through the same extreme methods. But the crucial difference, the thing that made him quit, was their mindset.
Which was what?
They refused to participate in any other type of athletic activity. Team sports, football, physical labor, anything that might cause muscle loss.
So he saw that professional bodybuilding demanded this kind of specialization that would require him to sacrifice the very athleticism he actually valued.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It was a trade-off he just wasn't willing to make. And it demonstrates that early prioritization of dynamic physical capability over static bulk, which ironically served him so well later in his action roles.
Absolutely. That dynamic physical presence, the ability to actually move, is defined by the long list of incredibly diverse jobs he held just to survive in post-war Edinburgh. This was not the life of a privileged gentleman.
Not even close. The list is staggering, and it really reveals a deep connection to the working classes that he championed later in his life, his first job.
The milkman.
The milkman for St. Cuthbert's Cooperative Society. He loved telling that anecdote later in life about astonishing an Edinburgh taxi driver because he knew every single street.
And Connery just told him?
As a boy, I used to deliver milk round here. It's perfect.
It's so grounding. Beyond the milk round, he was a lorry driver, which connects back to his father's profession. He was a lifeguard at Portobello Baths. He worked as a laborer.
And in one of the most striking details, he had a stint as a coffin polisher.
A coffin polisher, can you imagine?
It's unbelievable. He took on any work necessary just to keep afloat.
But his physical transformation also opened up a really surprising path. Modeling. He worked as an artist's model for the Edinburgh College of Art.
Yeah, earning a relatively high 15 shillings an hour. The contrast is just fascinating. A coffin polisher by day and a muse by evening.
You just can't make it up.
Artist Richard DeMarco, who worked with him, described him as very straight, slightly shy, too beautiful for words, a virtual Adonis.
It's hard to reconcile the big Tam who fought in the streets with the virtual Adonis posing for art students, isn't it?
But they were both aspects of the same intensely disciplined man.
We also have to mention his early naval service, which seems to have deeply influenced his sense of identity. He joined the Royal Navy in 1946 at just 16 years old, training at the Naval Gunnery School.
And it was during this time that he acquired the 2 tattoos that reflected his lifelong personal and political commitments, one reading Mum and Dad and the other
Scotland Forever.
Scotland Forever. That declaration of eternal national allegiance was inked long, long before his politics became globally famous.
His naval career was short-lived, though. He was discharged at 19 on medical grounds. It was a duodenal ulcer, a condition that was common among the men in his family.
Right. But his reputation as Big Tam was cemented long before that discharge through an anecdote that just perfectly captures his inherent toughness.
This would be the Valdor Gang incident.
The Valdor Gang incident, yes. They were a notorious and particularly violent gang in Edinburgh at the time. The whole confrontation began when Connery was in a billiard hall and members of the gang tried to steal his leather jacket.
And he just stood his ground.
He stood his ground, prevented the theft, but that initial confrontation led to an escalation.
Right, because they couldn't let that stand.
Exactly. So later, 6 members of the gang tracked him down to the Palais de Danse. Connery knew he was outnumbered and he had to move quickly, so he cornered them on a 15-foot-high balcony.
And the sources describe his reaction as just immediate and decisive.
Completely. He physically grabbed 2 of the gang members, one by the throat, the other by the bicep, and forcefully cracked their heads together, knocking them flat.
That is something straight out of an action movie script. But this was real life in 1950s Edinburgh.
Exactly. And the result? The rest of the gang just retreated. They left him alone after that. They recognized and respected that inherent capability to handle a confrontation.
It really is the origin story of the Bond we saw on screen. A man who clearly knew how to handle himself, whose suave exterior was built on an incredibly solid foundation of working-class grit.
So if we follow that man, The physical labor, the model,
Yeah.
the naval veteran, the self-disciplined bodybuilder. How does he transition this raw energy into the delicate world of the stage?
It started, as his previous jobs did, very pragmatically. He was just looking for ways to supplement his income in late 1951 and began helping backstage at the King's Theatre.
Just to make ends meet.
Exactly. The true spark of his acting career, however, came unexpectedly in 1953 when a fellow competitor at a bodybuilding contest suggested, almost flippantly, that he should audition for the touring production of the musical South Pacific.
And he got a role immediately. Started small as a chorus boy, a CB, but his upward trajectory within that single production was, well, it was remarkable. He was a quick study.
By the time the show reached Edinburgh, he had already been promoted to Marine Corporal Hamilton Steeves and was understudying the lead roles. His salary reflected this success, too. It jumped from £12 to £14 and 10 shillings a week.
Which was decent money back then.
It was. And the following year, the show returned, and he had landed the featured role of Lieutenant Buzz Adams.
But the real turning point wasn't the pay increase or even the better role. It was the education he received from within the company. This is where Big Tam starts becoming Sean Connery, the thoughtful actor.
This is Robert Henderson.
Robert Henderson. He befriended the American actor who just recognized the immense potential hidden beneath that physique.
Henderson was an absolutely critical influence. He was basically Connery's intellectual mentor. He didn't just teach him stagecraft, he introduced him to literature that expanded his worldview and really prepared him for serious roles.
Yeah, he lent him the cornerstones of Western drama and philosophy. I mean, we're talking Ibsen, Proust, Tolstoy, Joyce, Shakespeare.
So they're great.
The greats. And he fundamentally urged Connery to undertake elocution lessons, understanding that if he could just refine his powerful voice and his theatrical delivery, his natural charisma would be unstoppable. This was rigorous self-improvement.
But despite this rapid growth, the struggles were still very real. His financial difficulties continued, and they forced him to take some truly odd side hustles.
The sources note he was forced to take a part-time job as a babysitter for a journalist couple, earning 10 shillings a night.
A babysitter. James Bond, a babysitter.
It's incredible. And it was during this babysitting gig that he met the Hollywood actress Shelley Winters. Her description of him just encapsulates that moment perfectly. She saw one of the tallest and most charming and masculine Scotsmen she had ever encountered.
So the charm was clearly powerful, even if the financial situation was pretty dire.
Oh, absolutely.
Through the late 50s, the stage provided steady work. He was in Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution and classic dramatic roles in the Bacchius Pentheus and Anna Christie.
His first extra role came in 1954 in Lilacs in the Spring, but it was 1957 when he secured an agent, Richard Hatton, that led to his first credited film role.
And that role was Spike, a minor gangster with a speech impediment in the film No Road Back.
Yeah. It's almost impossible now to imagine Sean Connery with a speech impediment, but it just shows he was willing to take on challenging, non-glamorous roles right from the very start.
However, the moment that truly showcased his capabilities to industry professionals came on the small screen. The Canadian director Alvin Rakoff was disillusioned with his established leading man, Jack Palance.
Right.
And he took a significant gamble on Connery, giving him his first leading role as Mountain McClintock in the BBC television production of Requiem for a Heavyweight in 1957.
And that television role gave him immediate and serious critical exposure. It led to other gritty parts, like the rogue lorry driver Johnny Yates in Hell Drivers that same year. He was really establishing himself as this talented, tough, working-class actor.
But the anecdote that truly cemented his reputation for having that blend of theatricality and real-life hard man capability came on the set of the melodrama. Another time, another place in 1958, he was co-starring with Lana Turner.
The Lana Turner incident. The perfect collision of Hollywood scandal and Edinburgh street grit.
It really is. So Turner was dating Johnny Stompanato, who was a known Los Angeles gangster connected to the notorious West Coast mob boss Mickey Cohen.
And Stompanato flew to the set in the UK, absolutely convinced that Connery and Turner were having an affair after seeing them out socially.
So Stompanato just storms the set looking for a confrontation. And what happened next really defines the difference between a typical studio star and Sean Connery.
Stompanato reportedly pulled a gun and pointed at Connery. But Connery, recalling his background, did not hesitate for a second. He disarmed the gangster immediately and knocked him flat on his back.
Unbelievable.
Stompanato was subsequently banned from the set and escorted to the airport by Scotland Yard detectives.
That's a story that sounds like it was fabricated for a publicity stunt, but it was completely genuine. And it came with significant risks for Connery.
It did. Connery later recounted that because Stompanato was connected directly to Mickey Cohen, he received credible threats from men linked to the organization. He actually had to go into hiding for a while.
Wow.
That raw, grounded experience in navigating real danger, not cinematic danger, must have stayed with him.
And yet, despite that real-life drama, his first major U.S. exposure was just utterly wholesome and non-threatening. Walt Disney's Darby O'Gill and the Little People in 1959.
A charming Irish folklore tale about leprechauns. I mean, you couldn't get further from mobsters with guns. The New York Times review at the time just noted him as merely tall, dark, and handsome.
So Hollywood wasn't quite sure how to categorize this rugged talent yet.
Not at all. But he was noticed. He was magnetic, even when he was playing a romantic singing role. The stage was now set for the biggest pivot of his career.
Everything culminates in the role that defined him, James Bond. The decision to take it was strategic, but also a tremendous risk, committing him potentially to a decade of films.
He was, as we said, initially reluctant, very reluctant to commit to a long film series because he had aspirations towards serious theatrical roles. But he recognized the franchise's potential for immediate, unprecedented global stardom.
And the casting was just fraught with controversy, wasn't it? Largely due to the character's creator, Ian Fleming.
Fleming was not a fan,
Ugh.
not at first. He envisioned Commander Bond as this sophisticated, more reserved man, someone perhaps like David Niven or Cary Grant.
Right.
He famously doubted Connery, calling him unrefined and dismissing him as an overgrown stuntman. He just thought he was too rough and too obviously Scottish for the part.
So we really owe Connery's casting largely to the shrewd judgment of one person, Dana Broccoli, the wife of producer Albert R. Cubby Broccoli.
Absolutely. She was instrumental. She persuaded her husband and his partner, Harry Saltzman, that Connery possessed the necessary raw sexual charisma and the underlying toughness that the role needed. She saw the potential where Fleming saw only roughness.
And her judgment was validated so quickly. Fleming was so impressed by Dr. No's success in 1962 that he famously and retroactively injected Scottish heritage into the literary character.
Yes, in the 1964 novel You Only Live Twice, he stated Bond's father was from Glencoe. That's just a powerful acknowledgement of Connery's defining influence on the character he created.
But the transformation from Big Tam to the international man of mystery was a very deliberate construction. It required intensive stylistic tutelage from the director, Terence Young.
Young really took Connery under his wing. He essentially acted as an etiquette coach and a finishing school instructor all in one. He leveraged Connery's natural physical grace, which he developed through bodybuilding and sports, for all the action. But he refined the demeanor. Lois Maxwell, the original Miss Moneypenny, confirmed that Young taught him how to walk, how to talk, even how to eat. It was a crash course in upper-class sophistication designed to polish the raw diamond.
And the impact was immediate and global. After Dr. No's opening, Connery was receiving thousands of fan letters a week. He became an instant, undeniable international sex symbol.
And that self-introduction Bond, James Bond, it became an immediate cultural catchphrase, marking the moment a Scottish working-class boy redefined cinematic coolness.
His initial run was just a phenomenon. It was 5 consecutive Eon productions.
Right, Broccoli and Saltzman's company, which holds the primary canon rights.
So you have Dr. No in 62, From Russia with Love in 63, Goldfinger 64, Thunderball 65, and You Only Live Twice in 1967. And then he returned for Diamonds Are Forever in 1971.
And within those productions, the sources detail the genuine danger he encountered, which proves his capability went way beyond mere acting. Let's talk about the infamous shark scene in Thunderball.
Oh, the Shark Tank, yes.
That scene involved Connery being submerged in Emilio Largo's pool, which contained live sharks. And Connery, fully aware of the danger, insisted that the crew construct a special, robust plexiglass partition to separate him from the animals.
Which proved to be an absolutely essential precaution.
Completely. Despite the barrier, the sources confirmed that the partition wasn't fixed properly, and one of the sharks managed to breach it.
No way.
Yes, Connery had to abandon the pool immediately, narrowly escaping a legitimate, life-threatening attack. This wasn't clever camera work, it was real risk.
Yet, as the success soared, so did the psychological and artistic burden. And this really is the central conflict of his entire career. The immense fame versus his deep discontent with the role.
Connery grew profoundly tired of the relentless pressure and the creative constraints of playing a character that had become a global brand. His quotes from the time revealed genuine frustration.
They're quite shocking, really.
He famously declared, "I am fed up to here with the whole Bond bit." And even more dramatically, he said, "I have always hated that damn James Bond. I'd like to kill him."
And his close friend Michael Caine provided some insight into why this was so agonizing for him. It wasn't about the money or the fame itself.
No, it was because people would only refer to him as James Bond. He felt it completely diminished his skill and talent as an actor, and it prevented him from being taken seriously in dramatic roles.
Which is all he ever really wanted.
It is. And that frustration led to him walking away, only to return one last time for the non-Eon-produced film Never Say Never Again in 1983.
Right, and we should give the listener some context on this. It's important to understand the distinction. Eon Productions held the main rights. Never Say Never Again was a legal and financial anomaly. It was essentially a remake of Thunderball produced outside the standard franchise canon, and it all stemmed from these long-standing legal complexities over the original story rights.
And the title itself is just this perfect meta-reference to his fatigue. It was suggested by his wife, Micheline, after he swore he would never again return to the role.
And while the film was a box office success, the sources described the production as a total nightmare.
Yeah, it was plagued by legal battles, director-producer strife, financial issues, and it resulted in perhaps the most famous on-set injury of his entire career.
The broken wrist.
The broken wrist. During a fight scene, he suffered a broken wrist, and the fight choreographer for that specific sequence was none other than a young Steven Seagal.
You're kidding.
Nope. So the combination of a fractured wrist, a negative production experience, and a title literally referencing his reluctance, it just sums up the tortured complexity of his relationship with the character he created. After that experience, he took a 2-year hiatus from filmmaking altogether.
So if we look at Connery's career through this lens of strategic self-management, his pursuit of non-Bond roles during and immediately after the franchise proves his ambition was just far greater than mere stardom.
Absolutely. He used his Bond fame as currency, basically, to secure roles that forced critics and the audience to see him as an artist.
And one of the biggest artistic challenges he took on during his Bond tenure was working with the legendary Alfred Hitchcock on Marnie in 1964. This led to an early showdown that really defines his artistic integrity.
So one of those classic Hollywood moments.
Yeah.
Connery insisted on reading the script beforehand, which was a request Hitchcock often denied his actors. He just assumed they would sign based on his reputation alone.
Right.
Connery reportedly told Hitchcock's agent flatly, "I'm not Cary Grant."
And that one line is just an incredible statement of intent. It meant, I am not just a handsome, suave leading man who does whatever the director says. I need substance. I won't just fill your established formula for charming protagonists.
Precisely. He refused to be a placeholder. And while the film wasn't Hitchcock's biggest success, it showed the world that he was willing to take serious dramatic risks and stand up to legendary directors to define his own artistic space.
But the truly critical collaboration that solidified him as a dramatic actor came with the director Sidney Lumet. The Hill in 1965 was the first of 5 films they made together.
And The Hill was a black and white, totally non-glamorous military prison drama. It was a massive contrast to the colorful Bond films. It was a critical success. It won Best Screenplay at Cannes, and Connery frequently cited Lumet as one of his favorite directors.
So what specifically did Lumet pull out of Connery that the Bond producers couldn't, or maybe didn't want to?
Lumet saw the grit, not the polish. He saw the hard man from Edinburgh, not the spy from MI6. Lumet praised Connery's performance, noting the immense talent required to play a character based on charisma and magnetism, but applying it now to serious, complex drama rather than, escapist fantasy.
And the films they made together, like The Offense and Murder on the Orient Express, they really proved his dramatic depth outside of that 007 cage.
They did. And the 1970s saw him move into these major ensemble productions, which demonstrated his global popularity wasn't diminished by leaving Bond. He shared the Golden Globe Henrietta Award for World Film Favorite Male in 1972 with Charles Bronson.
Right, we see him in critically important ensemble films like Murder on the Orient Express in 74 and the WWII epic A Bridge Too Far in 77, but 2 specific films stand out as personal favorites for him and his co-stars.
The first being The Man Who Would Be King from 1975 with Michael Caine. Both actors regarded it as their favorite film collaboration.
Such a great film.
And the second, Robin and Marion from 1976, opposite the great Audrey Hepburn.
And Robin and Marion allowed Connery to explore a mature, reflective, romantic leading role, which was so far removed from the youthful action star. Critic Roger Ebert praised the profound chemistry between Connery and Hepburn, observing that they glowed together.
Yeah, he said they truly seemed like two people still deeply in love after decades. This proved his capacity to carry serious romantic and dramatic weight.
Now, we absolutely must address the film that is perhaps the most audacious artistic statement of his mid-career, the infamous sci-fi thriller Zardoz in 1974.
Ah, Zardoz. Zardoz is the ultimate middle finger to the Bond persona.
It really is.
It is known primarily for its shocking costume, the Scarlet Mankini, and its sheer narrative absurdity. Connery actively sought out the most jarring, non-Bond role possible, embracing the ridiculousness as this defiant artistic statement against being permanently trapped in sophistication.
The film was initially panned, wasn't it? I mean, some critics labeled it one of the worst movies ever made, but the deeper context is what really matters here.
Exactly. It has since developed a massive cult following, but the insight offered by the director, John Boorman, is key. He noted that Connery was a man of great depth and intelligence, and that he actually wrote poetry in his free time while filming.
So here's the man in a scarlet loincloth, flexing his dramatic muscles and writing poetry, actively trying to confound expectations.
You've got it. He also embraced quirky supporting roles, like playing Agamemnon in Terry Gilliam's fantasy epic Time Bandits in 1981.
That casting decision was actually based on a joke that was written into the script. The character was described as removing his mask and being Sean Connery or someone of equal but cheaper stature.
And Connery read it, loved the irreverence, and happily agreed to play the part. He was clearly comfortable leveraging his own iconic status for self-deprecating humor.
This whole period of seeking diverse roles, it culminated in a significant critical triumph, the European production of The Name of the Rose in 1986.
That film was pivotal. It arguably revived his interest in commercial material by validating his serious acting credentials. He won a BAFTA award for Best Actor, proving he could lead a sophisticated drama outside the Hollywood system.
And this success immediately preceded his next chapter of global commercial hits. It's also the year he established his late-career archetype.
By taking a supporting role as the older, wise mentor in Highlander in 1986, he found the formula that would define his final 2 decades of enormous success.
So the BAFTA win provided the perfect momentum for his true Hollywood comeback. He proved he was critically bankable, and everything aligned perfectly for his Oscar triumph in 1987 with The Untouchables.
In The Untouchables, he starred as the grizzled, hard-nosed Irish-American cop, Jim Malone, alongside Kevin Costner's Elliot Ness. The role just utilized both the Edinburgh grit and the refined dramatic skills he had honed with Sidney Lumet.
It was a tremendous success, blending high-quality filmmaking with box office appeal. And the performance finally secured him the industry's highest honor, the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor,
which made him the first Scottish actor to win a major Oscar. He also took home the Golden Globes for Best Supporting Actor for that role.
And the performance was universally praised. Critic Roger Ebert highlighted exactly why it was so powerful. He noted that Connery brings a human element to his character. When he's on screen, we can believe, briefly, that the Prohibition era was inhabited by real people, not caricatures.
He brought depth to what could have so easily been a caricature. And this success cemented his late-career archetype. The tough, wise, often grizzled mentor who steals the scene from the younger protagonist.
Which led immediately to one of his most beloved roles, Henry Jones Sr., Indy's father in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in 1989.
That dynamic was pure gold. Harrison Ford later emphasized that Connery wasn't just hired to read the lines. He made deep contributions during the writing stage, adding complexity and value to the character in the script. He just elevated the entire project.
He earned BAFTA and Golden Globe nominations for that performance as well.
And this era delivered consistent box office success. The Hunt for Red October in 1990, where he played the Russian submarine captain. The Rock in '96, which solidified his partnership with director Michael Bay.
A surprising but effective partnership.
Very. And it earned him an MTV Movie Award nomination for Best Duo with Nicolas Cage. And then Entrapment in 1999. Even his voice work, like playing Draco the Dragon in Dragonheart in '96, showed that his presence could elevate fantasy material.
But the sources make it clear that the later years were characterized both by massive hits and highly visible misses, which led to his eventual retirement.
Right. He continued to receive positive reviews for films like Finding Forrester in 2000, where he returned to that mentor role. However, the critical and commercial disappointments included the highly panned film version of The Avengers in 1998 and, most significantly, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen in 2003.
And that 2003 film, based on the graphic novel, was the absolute breaking point. It was the experience that ultimately ended his acting career.
It was profoundly frustrating for him. The sources recount that Connery sensed the production was going off the rails during shooting. He was highly critical of the director, Stephen Norrington, and later suggested that the director would have been arrested for insanity if he hadn't left the UK.
Strong words.
Very. He spent significant stressful effort trying to salvage the film during editing, but the experience was so negative, the disillusionment so profound, that he just decided to retire from acting rather than endure that level of stress and incompetence again.
And this brings us to the roles he turned down, which are now legendary in Hollywood lore, and they provide the perfect counterpoint to his deliberate retirement.
The massive rejection was, of course, the role of Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings films.
So why did he turn down a role that was so clearly a global phenomenon in the making?
His reason was famously pragmatic and consistent with the principle he applied to Hitchcock decades earlier. He stated simply that he did not understand the script.
He didn't get it.
He didn't get it.
Yeah.
He was unwilling to commit to a massive, time-consuming project where he didn't grasp the narrative or his place within it.
And the financial cost of that commitment to comprehension was just staggering. He was offered a salary of US $30 million, plus a staggering 15% of the worldwide box office receipts.
If you do the math, that potentially cost him around US $450 million. It's one of the most financially momentous artistic rejections in history.
And he applied the same logic to other huge fantasy franchises. He turned down Albus Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series and the Architect in the Matrix trilogy.
He confirmed his retirement officially when he received the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award in 2006, citing his disillusionment with the idiots now making films in Hollywood.
That statement just encapsulates his frustration, doesn't it? He was an actor of integrity who was tired of dealing with incompetence, even if it cost him $500 million.
Exactly. He did briefly come out of retirement in 2012 to voice the title character in the Scottish animated film Sir Billy, where he also served as an executive producer. But his major screen career had definitively ended years prior.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to his complex personal life and the political identity that so often put him at odds with the British establishment.
In his early life, he had several notable relationships. There was Carol Sopel, a Jewish woman, and their relationship ended because her family reportedly warned him off. He also dated Julie Hamilton, who initially thought his appearance was appalling.
Appalling.
Yes, but that comment drastically changed the moment she saw him wearing a kilt, which instantly transformed her perception of his masculinity and charm.
The power of the kilt. His first marriage was to the Australian actress Diane Cilento from 1962 to 1973. They had one son, the actor Jason Connery. This period, however, is marked by significant controversy that really haunted him for decades.
It is. Cilento alleged mental and physical abuse during their relationship in her 2006 autobiography, and this put a spotlight on controversial statements Connery had made much earlier in his career.
The most frequently cited comments came from a 1965 Playboy interview where he suggested he didn't think there was anything particularly wrong in hitting a woman.
And then later, in a 1993 Vanity Fair interview, he seemed to double down, speaking of women looking for the ultimate confrontation and wanting a smack.
Now, it is important to impartially report the complexity of his response to this controversy over time. These statements caused immense public backlash, and they led to him eventually addressing the issue years later.
Yes, he provided an unequivocal retraction in 2006. He stated very clearly, "I don't believe that any level of abuse of women is ever justified under any circumstances, full stop."
However, the controversy remains strong enough that he canceled an appearance at the Scottish Parliament that same year. We have to report these claims and retractions as they appear in the source material, acknowledging this very sensitive aspect of his legacy.
His second marriage proved much more enduring. He married the French-Moroccan painter Micheline Roquebrune in 1975, and they remained together until his death. She was the one who famously provided the title for Never Say Never Again.
Beyond his marriages, Connery had defining hobbies, most famously golf.
Oh, his love for golf was profound and lifelong. He was introduced to the game by his friend Ian Stewart. That iconic golf scene in Goldfinger was meticulously prepared for.
He had lessons.
He did. Peter Allis, the English professional golfer, gave him lessons specifically before filming. He even popularized a particular fashion statement, the light gray Marl Slazenger V-neck sweater. Jack Nicklaus himself described him as a pretty darn good golfer.
Let's turn now to the political identity that ran deeper than any of his acting roles. His staunch support for the Scottish National Party, or SNP.
Right. The SNP is the political party that campaigns explicitly for Scottish independence from the United Kingdom, and Connery was a lifelong vocal supporter. His interest was reportedly sparked when he directed and presented the 1967 documentary The Bowler and the Bunnet.
Which was about what?
It was about industrial relations in the Glasgow shipyards. He saw the potential for a self-governing Scotland through that project.
And he supported the SNP both financially and through personal campaigning. In 1967, he wrote to an SNP candidate, expressing his firm belief that Scotland was more than capable of building a prosperous, vigorous, and modern self-governing Scotland.
His political advocacy was so strong that it actively interfered with his public life. Sources confirm that his knighthood, which he deeply desired, was reportedly vetoed twice by the British government due to his fervent political activities.
And his financial support for the SNP only ceased in 2001 because UK legislation prohibited overseas funding of political activities. This brings us to the inevitable controversies surrounding his residency status. He relocated to the Bahamas in the 1990s.
And the accusation that he was a tax exile followed him for years. In 2003, he released documents showing he had paid millions in UK taxes between 1997 and 2003 to counter the claims.
But critics correctly noted that the amount was far lower than what he would have paid had he continuously resided in the UK for tax purposes. The relocation was clearly motivated by tax benefits.
And the implication of this tax status was significant, particularly for his political involvement. His own brother noted that his tax exile status legally limited the number of days Connery could spend in Scotland, meaning he couldn't actively participate in the 2014 Scottish independence referendum campaign.
Wow. Despite all that political friction, the knighthood finally came through in 2000. Queen Elizabeth II knighted him at Holyrood Palace.
And fittingly, he wore his mother's Maclean clan tartan kilt, a powerful symbol of his reconciliation with the establishment, while still retaining his distinct Scottish identity.
Connery died in his sleep on October 31, 2020, at age 90 in the Bahamas. His son confirmed he had been unwell, and his widow revealed he had suffered from dementia in his final years. The cause of death was listed as pneumonia and respiratory failure.
And in a final act of devotion to his homeland, his ashes were scattered in Scotland at undisclosed locations in 2022, fulfilling his final wish to be returned home. The tributes poured in from across the globe, including from every surviving Bond actor, Lazenby, Dalton, Brosnan, and Craig, and close colleagues like Harrison Ford and Michael Caine.
The Bond producers released a joint statement emphasizing that Connery had revolutionized the world with his portrayal of 007 and was largely responsible for the franchise's enduring success.
If we connect all this to the bigger picture, Connery's entire career arc demonstrates not just immense raw talent and charisma, but this incredible strategic self-management. He consistently sought serious, non-Bond roles like those with Lumet and his Oscar-winning turn in The Untouchables that forced the world to recognize him as an artist who happened to play a spy, not just the spy himself.
And the public acknowledged this dichotomy. They voted him the greatest living Scot in 2004 and People magazine's sexiest man of the century in 1999.
And his legacy continues to evolve, rooted so deeply in his Edinburgh origins. As recently as 2024, the Edinburgh International Film Festival established the Sean Connery Prize for Feature Filmmaking Excellence. It cements the idea that the city never forgot Big Tam.
What a phenomenal journey, marked by just so many contradictions. We saw the Edinburgh Milkman and Bodyguard, forged in working-class grit, transformed into the definition of cinematic coolness through sheer determination and Robert Henderson's tutelage.
Yet he spent the peak of his career fiercely battling against the constraints of that very success.
He used Bond as a launchpad, but his greatest critical achievements came when he explicitly sought out roles that challenged the suave image, whether that was embracing the ridiculousness of the Scarlet Mankini in Zardoz, or confronting Hitchcock's agent about needing to read the script. His Oscar was a reward for prioritizing substance over comfort.
And that strategic commitment to artistic integrity is perhaps best summarized by his famous rejection. He turned down the role of Gandalf because he didn't understand the script, costing him a potential US $450 million. It's an astonishing moment where artistic principle definitively outweighed financial security.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Connery's career shows the immense strategic cost of artistic integrity. His decision was based on a simple, consistent principle: refusing to be involved in a project if he couldn't intellectually grasp and contribute to it. This raises an important question. In your own field, how do you decide between a project that offers enormous, almost unthinkable financial security versus a project that genuinely challenges and satisfies your intellectual or creative standards? Where do you draw the line between strategic risk and regrettably accepting a role you fundamentally don't believe in? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.